We should all get notifications at this point.
Notifications on what?
That you're live on the internet. Everyone is live on the internet on the stream right now. So, Aaron. So, by the way, if you're dialing in right now, you joined Canton Coders, special premiere of Aaron Bockley hacks the firmware of a ceiling fan, because that's the type of people we are.
It's not hacking it. It's just adjusting it
And,
is what it
and
is.
you're on a 20-second delay because we're doing this live.
Yeah.
If we disappear,
Then that's that.
that's because Nathan pushed the big red button on his desk.
Hey man,
Panic button.
I don't mind big red buttons.
So yeah, I mean, as people join, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the participants list over here. But hey, if you don't want to be rebroadcast or restreamed, we get it. Just don't say anything or turn your camera. And if you want to, sarcastically make fun of Aaron, just hit the Slack channel, and we'll read it out loud under a different name.
Someone will read it out and put some comments there, I'm sure.
But yeah, show us what you're doing with your firmware. By the way, I need to do this to my house. So,
Yeah. Hang on. Let me.
Increase the RPMs of your ceiling fans.
Yeah, I want to hook them into the smart home so I can turn the light off and the fan off independently of turning the light. The smart switch on. I got 2 little kids, and I don't want to turn the lights on in the middle of the night accidentally while they're sleeping.
I'm checking to make sure that I have what's the username here? So how many show of hands? I like bouncing
By
off
a show of hands.
Yeah. Bouncing off the massive crowd that we have here.
Overflow it. We're overflowing the stack here.
Oh yeah. How many of you heard of MQTT?
MQTT. Of course, I've heard about MQTT.
The protocol.
Is that mosquito queuing
Yeah.
transfer
Mosquito.
something?
Yeah. Mosquito protocol.
Mosquito as a what?
So
Message
Are
broker.
we not live? Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
Overflow it.
That's
We're
fine.
over.
So anyway, Tasmoda, MQTT, ESP32, Wi-Fi stuff, Home Assistant. These are all sort of the Legos that I'm playing with this evening. And
what's the business outcome tonight, Aaron?
Oh, the business outcome is so I can go to sleep with my ceiling fan in my bedroom at nighttime and not have to get up and go pull the stupid chain to make it turn on.
How many story points is it to turn on the fan?
Well, wait, we got to break it down. Like, first of all, we got to break it down into small tasks and assign them to each person in the room.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna who's gonna pry open the box?
Is that well, Nathan? Don't we need to get a BA to write the story for us?
Yeah.
Who's doing the safety training to operate the screwdriver?
William, I think he might actually be a trained engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you do the safety training on how to open a box?
Is he qualified to operate the screwdriver?
Ooh, power or manual?
I think I'm gonna have to request funds for training.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go ahead and get
one of these toolkit drivers from
Aaron. We're gonna probably need you to do that.
Pretty good.
Because as an outside contractor at Canton Coders, we'd probably need to get HR to write the job description and do a fair market evaluation of the. Are you righty tighty lefty loosey?
This is more pry-y, don't stab your IE kind of.
Oh yeah. So we probably should put a disclaimer of do not try this at home. I will get that here. I'll call down to the production booth.
Yeah, don't do. I am doing it at home.
No, I'm saying we need to probably put up a disclaimer saying don't try this at home.
Yeah.
Just for safety.
Here, let me show you something else that's fun. So here is another device that also talks MQTT and has Tasmoda loaded onto it. You can kind of see here, this is a relay board. And you can get these on the internet for various prices, but that's ESP32 chip right there. It's got Wi-Fi on it. It's got dry contacts for the relays over here. And the fun thing is that when the refrigerator opens upstairs, one of these little things clicks and turns on. It's kind of entertaining. I just have it because why not? This is the thing.
Everyone should have one.
Everyone should have one.
But let me show what that actually entails and how you get to that point. Share my screen. Oh,
Wonderful,
Host
wonderful.
disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. By the
Womp
way,
womp.
at the bottom of your screen, if you are watching this live on the internet tonight, you notice that disclaimer: do not try this at home. Aaron is not a professional.
I am not. The only thing I'm qualified to do is I stayed in a Holiday Inn Express once.
Didn't your family live on a bus also one day?
Yes. That is true. Oh, here we go. MQTT Explorer. So
Don't
check
share any
this out.
secrets either.
Oh, it's not there. It's look, see, it's all dots.
Type that into the chat, please.
Hunter 21. Anyway, if we look right here under Tasmota Discovery, there's some devices in here. And you can see there's 8 channels in this. And so what's kind of fun is we can see the path for the config. We can see the path for the command. So I could set one of these to 0 or 1 and make those magic little relays turn off and on right there through a very low weight protocol to talk to that thing. You also get a lot of extra information, temperature and things like that. There's some other Tasmota devices in here that are actually Sonoff controllers that are out in the garage because I have a chicken coop and I have chickens.
Do you have smart chicken coop?
I do. And let me stop the share on that and I'll show you the Home Assistant view of the Mr. Chicken Coop. And let's see here, share the screen again.
Do you
Home
think you're the
Assistant.
only smart chicken coop in Wichita,
No.
Kansas?
I don't know, maybe. But here, so I took a regular old stupid space heater, wired it to a Tasmota, or not Tasmota, Sonoff HT. What is this? TH
Tasmota.
320 Elite. So the temperature humidity Elite.
Mm-hmm.
It's able to switch 20 amps of current. It's got a little temperature dingus on it, and it has a little display that shows your stuff on it. So this firmware on here normally requires you to go download a thing from China off of the Apple store, the Google store, and then pair it with it. And then literally every time any changes or whatever, it pings off of some place on the other side of the planet and comes back again. And that is just not what I like. I like everything local. So instead we have that bit of MQTT stuff happening there, and we're able to map that to these guys. So let's go like this really quick. I need to open up Unify. So we're gonna look at Unify devices on my network here. Let's see here. Here's the Sonoff right here, 192.168.1.206. And you can see here, this is one of those devices right now. So currently the heater is off and the other little dry contact relay is off. But if I toggle this right now, I'm going to move this out of the window so you can kind of see it from here. Watch this auxiliary heater switch here. So I'm pushing that button over in the other web interface directly on the device. And I'm currently clicking a 1,000-watt space heater on and off over in the chicken coop.
Is that why your lights are dimming in the background?
Perhaps, but probably not. What's really neat is that I'm able to just add a widget in here. So in this case, I went over to Home Assistant, opened up the configuration YAML for Home Assistant, and we'll let this load here, and set up a thermostat. I don't really care about the passwords in here. Anybody who's welcome to see them. So here's the climate control for a generic thermostat. Switch Tasmota. You have a min and max temp, you have a target temp, you have a cycle duration in seconds and keep alive and all sorts of other stuff. And what that turns into is a thermostat, literally, that regulates a dumb $30 Walmart heater into a fairly precise device. So if I look at the time over time, you can see it here cycling the heater on and off over the last 24 hours. During the day, it got warm enough we didn't need to do anything, and it kind of keeps the chickens happy, basically.
How do you know the chickens are happy?
Because I go in there and I ask them if they're happy, and they say yes. I mean, don't you talk to chickens?
Makes sense.
I mean, look,
That's
I
what
have no data to disagree with your complete scientific method there.
I know it seems pretty easy to do.
How often do you ask them if they're happy?
At least twice a day.
Isn't there a Home Assistant plugin for that yet?
Not yet, but there's like a voice synthesis thing you can do, so you can maybe
Yeah.
ask them.
It's getting the chickens to text. It's the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
they
will
just said
say
a lot
that
of
if you
clucks.
show them I am actually seriously considering setting up a tablet in there for two-way video calls, because if you show them a screen with people looking in the screen, like a video call or a Zoom call, they'll walk right up to the screen, look at you with one eye, and like try to figure out how to get into the screen and peck at you.
Aaron, we have a question from Slack.
Sure.
Are the chickens on NDA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just making sure at Can't Coders we are a professional corporation and we want to abide by our corporate governance to the T.
Absolutely. They're
in
contributing
fact,
members as well.
How many of the chickens are Scrum Master certified?
3 of them.
Okay. Nathan,
So,
can you
we have 7.
mark that down in the minutes?
Yeah, I'm adding.
Can we get their names after the call?
Sure. Sweetie. I don't remember the other ones.
What day's retro, by the way, for the
Fluffy.
chickens?
We'll need to check their certs, of course, and where they got them. But
Yeah, and what day of the week is the retro in the chicken coop?
They're Tuesdays, and also they're definitely high growth employees.
Okay.
So
and then yeah, we'll talk about story points and eggs later on.
yeah, we also got to figure out what their favorite game is for.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what runs on those little boards. Espressif ESP32 is kind of the big boy. The slightly smaller MCU is the smaller version of it. But basically, this little microcontroller is in a lot of stuff. And multiple cores. One core is kind of dedicated mostly to Wi-Fi to be able to transact. The other one is your open core to run whatever it is you want to run on them. They got some RAM and IO pins and all that good stuff.
So Aaron, real quick, for the audience out there, if there are people watching in about 20 years,
sure.
What's your background in software? Did you study EE at MIT? Did you go to computer science at Stanford? How did you get into software? How did you get this far? Because as much as we're cheesing out, you're actually doing real embedded programming.
I actually didn't really go to school for any of that stuff, nor am I trained in anything. I started as a guy fixing my neighbor's computers when I was a kid. Like, hey, what's going on? I bet I could fix that. I think I had more charisma than anything else, talking my way into thinking, letting people think that I knew what I was talking about, and managing to not break it more than break it when it came to figuring it out.
So,
yeah.
And by the way, this is going to turn into a marketing video too in a second.
Oh, I know.
Do you feel like you fit in at Can't Coders?
Yeah. Why do you think I'm sitting here talking to everybody?
Because you want to talk about chicken coops, smart homes, and embedded
about
programming.
Chickens. Yeah, but the thing is that I can, and it doesn't, and I don't feel like awkward about it.
I mean, we might ask some interesting questions about your chickens. They may be privacy focused. We don't know that. In fact, the PII you disclosed from the chickens means we may have to scrub this tape.
Potentially.
Anyway, sorry to derail you, but I wanted to grab that 30-second marketing clip. No chickens were harmed in this. In fact, they're kept warm, correct?
Yeah, they're kept at exactly 64, 65 degrees.
As their contract states, correct?
Yes. Plus or minus 2 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, and they said they're happy with that. So
yeah,
and 3 of them were Scrum Master certified, so they wouldn't lie.
Look, did you see the auxiliary heater turned on by itself?
Mm-hmm.
It's running because it's hit its mark. It'll turn off here in a little bit.
We're interested.
Oh, they also have a room lamp too.
Yes, we will be interested when you tie in a camera and do smart video watching and track the chickens' movements. But
so not only would I be tracking the chickens' movements, but I'll be for the watering container they have. You put a little float in the top of it that's visible in the camera, and you define a region that you can sense the water being low and high, and then that can translate into a percentile measurement for an AI tool to kind of parse the image. So you don't have to actually have any physical, tangible sensors. You just need a camera.
A camera. So we're going to do computer vision in the future for your chickens?
Yeah, there'll be chicken vision in the future.
Chicken vision. Nathan, can we schedule that out for February 31st?
Chicken vision? Okay.
Absolutely expecting chicken vision at some point.
Chickenvision.com.
Yeah. Notice how the temperature went idle because it hit over 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and now
Yeah.
it's back off. It's
And
kind
all
fun.
of this is because you were innately curious about software, and you're welcome here at Can't Coders because we welcome everyone.
I think the very first sort of like playing with hardware on a computer was back when I was 12 or 13, trying to figure out the parallel port on an IBM PC
Mhm.
and the TTL level logic that you literally have like eight channels of binary conversation you can have on a parallel port, not to mention flow control and the other switches on it. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was terrifying to wire wires up to my computer thinking I'm going to fry it. But you open up basic and then toggle the pins on the parallel port, and suddenly you could talk to things out in the real world. And it was really cool hooking up a relay to your computer and having it actually do that when you're 12 years old.
See,
So
we'll figure out how to make this a 20-second video that will make you feel awkward on LinkedIn next week.
look, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm toggling individual relays on 8 bits at a time on a board still. You can see I've really progressed.
I mean, you're doing great here. So, going back to, some of the hardest things, Aaron, I've learned in a professional life is how to have conversations like this and segue back to the topic at hand, right?
Absolutely.
And, one of the ways to do that is to just say, how do we segue back to the topic at hand?
Yep. There's kind of that little timer that's in your head that you're like, oh yeah, what was I talking about again?
So you're talking about how you're going to flash your firmware on your ceiling fan so that when you turn your ceiling fan on, a server in a different country halfway around the world doesn't have to be woke up.
Correct. We're going to use the magic of Tasmota. So Tasmota compatible devices.
Which is about
With a
anything smart related on the network, right?
What's that?
Anything smart. Any smart device sold on Amazon, 80% of them are Tasmota based, correct?
No, most smart devices are not Tasmota based. And actually, you need to be very careful about what you buy because some manufacturers actively prevent you from flashing stuff onto their things. They either use undocumented microcontrollers or they do dirty tricks about not allowing a hardware reset assert to be able to put it into flash mode, to just all sorts of things. And I really suggest, if you're going to be serious about doing home automation, that you look into stuff that doesn't require a login account and an auth key to connect to a device that you have physically installed in your own home.
Can I use this time to rant?
Yeah.
So I have a smart garage opener.
Is it Genie?
No, I won't. It's Chamberlain. I'll just.
That's just as bad.
Yeah, it's terrible because it has to connect to the internet to open my garage door.
Yeah.
And I have a smart home and I run Apple Home, right? And Home Assistant's a backup, but I use Apple Home as the interface. And I'll tell you, like Apple Home runs on an Apple TV, and I have 5 of them in my home, so it's always snappy. Except the garage door. The garage door is literally calling a server around the world to open my garage door. And yeah.
There are a lot of unsupported devices in Tasmota.
Oh, and the best part is I set up a new DNS server because, we're cool. We run all, Can't Coders. We all run our own DNS servers. I set up a second ad blocking DNS server, Aaron.
Yeah.
And it's blocking the Chamberlain website for some reason.
Yeah, and then it can't connect.
It can't connect. And I'm like, oh, great. It might have been $12, but who's profiting off of knowing if my door is open or closed?
Yeah. The thing that's really disappointing so Tasmota is not the only flashable platform for this. This is just the one that I happen to pick. The thing that I really enjoy about Tasmota is that you kind of just download a single binary for this. Tasmota download. And then once you're in there, you just configure the Tasmota device according to whatever you'd like. So this is the Tasmota interface right here. And if you go to configuration, you'll note that you have a lot of options in here. And then I can pick under configure other. And you can see kind of some template stuff in here that somebody's figured out. That's just a big old JSON glob to set it up. You can name the contacts and stuff, but you can also then, let's see. Actually, yeah, we'll go in here for a minute. You can pick a lot of So they kind of auto configure some of the modules and stuff. If I could pick configure template. Yeah, there we go. So for those that might be streaming and watching, general purpose IO is what GPIO stands for. And general purpose IO is a pretty common thing in microcontrollers and embedded devices because most little MCUs and little embedded controllers have a bunch of pins to do general purpose things. They typically work at 3.3 or 5 volts levels, and they can barely carry any amperage at all on them. So a lot of the extra complexity that you see on the little circuit board ends up just being kind of stuff to handle other line voltages in and out. So I'm about to now pop this open so we can kind of take a look at this. Let's see, I've never opened one of these before, so you'll have to excuse me while I try not to ruin the case on it.
Well, you focus on that, Aaron. I'm going to go ahead and do a pitch. So at Can Coders, we are a community open to just about anyone. And by the way, we say just about anyone. It's you pretty much just have to have a computer and be able to access one of our resources. And one of the things we're starting to learn with a community of over 1,000 people is there's a ton of ways of getting software. And Aaron's an example of someone that didn't go to formal training that's really good at software, and he's doing embedded things. So if you're interested in software and you can buy an $8 to $10 smart switch, Home Assistant and what Aaron's doing is a great way to understand, hey, would I like a career in that? Before you go off and invest tens of thousands of dollars into education. Because if you don't like doing this stuff, Aaron, do you think you're going to like a career in software?
No, you're going to hate it.
Yeah. So before you go to a community college, before you go to a four-year university, before you go to a boot camp and pay a lot of money, what should you try to do, Aaron?
You should derive some entertainment from something like this. If you find it to be fascinating and capturing your interest, then it is an excellent sign that it is something that you may want to actually do professionally.
Mm-hmm. But if you're looking how to make $25,000 more a year by going to some short training out there without guaranteed results, before you do this, will you be disappointed?
Oh, yeah. So managed to pry the back off of the thing. There's a lot of wires on this. I'm going to point out that this device is actually designed to run with line voltage, 110 volts AC, that is installed in a ceiling fan, and it's able to control the motor and the main lights on a ceiling fan. So if you look here, there's some pretty big capacitors in here.
What's a capacitor do?
It just holds an electrical charge for a short period of time.
And you know this because you went to EE school? I'm kind of hitting here on a marketing video.
No. I learned it because I was told what a capacitor was once, and I kind of just like, well, I don't care about that. And then later I was like, how do I hold a charge so it doesn't lose the voltage? I was like, oh yeah, capacitor.
So,
and then I had to get interested in figuring it out.
So show and tell the rest of this what your board is.
Sure. So we have some antennas on the top.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 433 megahertz antenna for the little wall control. So every single remote that you basically have that you buy at Home Depot for controlling a thing is probably 433 megahertz based.
Mm-hmm.
The other antenna is a Wi-Fi antenna because this thing can talk Wi-Fi. And the reason it has antennas is because it's going to be jammed inside of a metal enclosure inside of a ceiling fan on the ceiling, and it has to have good reception to talk to stuff. Down here at the other end is literally where you take the wire nuts from the house wiring and you wire in your line and your neutral, and then you have your output neutral, and then you have a one labeled fan, and you have one labeled light.
And by the way, our lawyer is calling us and he's saying, if you do not feel comfortable, hire a licensed electrician in your region, because Aaron is not a professional.
I am not a licensed electrician, and you should not be doing this at home.
You should call an electrician.
In your jurisdiction, you may be required to pull any permits required to actually to make any changes to the house wiring in your house. But today, we are not going to be powering this up with 120 volts out of the wall. We're only going to be powering it up with 3.3 volts.
Oof.
So
we're interested to know how.
Yeah. So we're going to use these little holes that are on here. Do you see them?
Hey, y'all, I got to be up in the morning to teach Saturday school.
Oh, by the way, a plug to Canton Coders. Because if you really like this stuff and you want to get in software development, jump onto one of our free Saturday schools. Right, Nathan?
That's right.
Because before you throw a bunch of money and a bunch of time into something you may not like, and find happiness in,
Come
come
write
be
some
unhappy
code.
with us.
Yeah, come write some code.
Write some code.
You'll
Write
see how
some code.
miserable we are. Then you won't. Then you'll know.
Mm-hmm. Come find out what coding is like in real life before you think, hey, I can go make $95,000 a year after a 14-week class. Or, hey, I want to go study for 4 years at a university, and realize that you would have been happier as an electrician, a plumber, someone doing
Nothing wrong.
AC,
Hey,
and,
there's nothing wrong with trade work.
and probably making a whole lot more money than software developers. But Aaron, how do we get back on topic?
We're going to talk about this controller board and how we load firmware onto it. So every single one of these relays here, these little squares on the top, they're controlled via a general purpose IO interface.
So what does
on
IO
that
stand
chip.
for?
Input and output. And so most microcontrollers can be set to have their little pins be set as an input or as an output. And because the smart little guys that built that little board right there already figured it out and built a purpose-built device, they have built a circuit board that's connected to specific IO pins already. So I don't really have to worry about that. The thing with Tasmota, I don't have to really think about figuring this out because most other people have already bought these and went and did what I would have done if I had been the first person, which is to go figure out which pins go to what. So you can see on this mapping view for a different device that someone has decided that GPIO pin 4 is a relay, GPIO 5 is a little microchip controller of some kind for a display. Others are for lighting up an LED for status and so forth. And this is where Tasmota is really helpful, is that it's one binary that is loaded onto the device because it's one chip architecture, espressif, and then it's kind of a general purpose, configure what you want it to do kind of thing. So in order to load that onto one of these devices, there's these little pin headers right here. And this is why certain manufacturers are better than others, in my opinion. So you notice that qualified opinion there, right? There's 4 little holes here on the circuit board for pins, and they're labeled, let's see if I can read them here. Ground, GND, SDA, 3V3, SCL. And then the other side is, the other pins are 3V3, RXD, TXD, and ground. Joel, what do you think TXD means?
I think it means transmission.
And what do you think RXD means?
Receiving. That's
Sounds
because
like a
I
serial
actually did
port.
take computer science colleges and classes in college.
So what we have here is an unpopulated header location to connect something up to it. So conveniently, I have a little set of pins right here. These are just like you order them on Amazon or whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and aim my camera down and actually solder that pin header onto.
Once again, Aaron is not a professional.
No,
He doesn't know what he's doing. If by
I have no idea
chance
what I'm
he
doing.
turns out to be a great solderist, is that what you call someone that solders?
That sounds fine to me. It's probably wrong, but it sounds fine.
And by the way, Aaron, what's your website for your bus?
Broccolibus.com.
And you might know that voice because, Aaron, what YouTube channels would we probably have heard you on?
Oh, you probably would see me on Tiny Home Tours once in a while.
If you're interested in software development, before you go invest 14 weeks to 4 years, you should try something like this, right, Aaron?
Yeah. Do this kind of stuff first.
According to our Wikipedia site on marketing, repeating the same message over and over and over builds memory.
Yes. It's kind of like those radio station advertisements.
So you're going to solder right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of got to balance this little header pin on here. I'm just going to deal with that later. So what I'm going to do is hook up my soldering iron to some power here.
What brand of soldering iron are you using?
I'm using a Pine Sil.
Pine Sil. By the way, we are not endorsed by Pine Sil. In fact, if you haven't figured this out, we are winging this entire stream. Are we not, Aaron?
Oh, the whole thing's winged. This is everything's winged, man.
Our audience, our in-office studio audience of William, is probably very, very impressed right now. Are you, William?
All one person who's watching right now.
It's got my gears turning.
It's got his gear turning. It's because William started the night off talking about work, and we said, "Goodness, work? It's Friday night. You should be enjoying life."
Yes.
And that includes soldering a fan controller for your ceiling fan.
It's got me thinking what I can do with my garage door opener, actually.
What you can do with your garage opener is probably open and close it.
Yes.
In fact, William, if you're feeling up to it, we'll allow you to build a truth table given the states of open and close of the garage door later on.
Yes.
Because if you don't like truth tables, will you like software development?
No.
By the way, Aaron is performing in front of his live studio audience of his children and wife.
Yes. So what I'm going to do now is I have a little power strip.
Could you quit sharing your screen, Aaron, so everyone can see this beautiful...
Sorry.
I mean, this is probably the only channel that's doing live soldering on all of YouTube right now.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody else is.
And by the way, you need to upgrade your bandwidth because it's extremely pixelated.
That's probably my kids watching a bunch of movies or something on Disney Plus. So I have a power supply brick over here in the corner that I'm going to... It's a long story, but I don't have a correct USB power supply for my soldering iron. So just give me 1 second here while I set this up.
By the way, William, while he's setting this up, do you have any nice small talk to make?
Nice small talk. It's snowing here.
It's wonderful, wonderful. What kind of snow?
It's kind of that, what do you call it? I don't know. It's that weird, like...
Cold?
Not powdery, onion snow.
Onion snow. Wonderful. One of the top 10 snows of this year. Am I right?
Yep.
In fact, I was just reading on the internet the other day, but this year may be the year of onion snow.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, William, how did you get into software development?
I was asked, or I was told, "Oh, you're young, you know how to do this." And being that it was kind of my first major job, and even though I had no idea, I decided to figure it out.
You figured it out. And were you classically trained in anything?
I studied industrial engineering.
Industrial engineering.
Yep.
So you know how everything works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
See?
If it's industrial.
Once again, there are numerous ways into software development. But before you do it, William, what would you recommend?
I would say, yeah, do some projects, search around online, try some stuff out. The reality is the first time I was ever introduced to it, I hated it.
Yep. In fact, some people, William, and I'm going to ask you this as a professional software developer. Do you notice my shirt?
I don't see you.
What would you say that you do here?
Have fun.
Right. But are you familiar with this great biography of software developers? Is it a historical film? Documentary? What would you call it?
Trying to get back where I can see here.
Are you familiar with the works of Peter Gibbons?
Oh, yes.
Have you read the great Peter Gibbons and seen his documentary called Office Space?
Yes.
Yes. Before you get into the career of software development, thinking that in 14 weeks that you can make $95,000 a year, maybe you should watch Office Space and see if that would make you happy. You think that's fair, William?
Absolutely.
And if Office Space is interesting to you, maybe Grandma's Boy, right?
Oh, Grandma's Boy is a good one.
What are other software development documentaries that kind of expose to you to the real day-to-day? Do you think Social Network actually portrays the funness that we have on a day-to-day basis as software developers?
I have not watched it.
I would say that Social Network is not an accurate thing. If you really want to get into software, Canton Coders is here to help. We're a nonprofit. We charge nothing. Do we, Aaron?
Nope.
We have an operating budget of like $300 to $400 a year. And, we're here to help because we believe that all software developers should be happy. That doesn't mean we're agile. That just means you're happy in life. And that's what we're doing. So, Aaron, talk us through here. What are you doing right now as I try to fill out a audition tape for live coding.
Apparently, you're filling out a. You're. I feel like I'm on one of those public broadcasting
Mm.
uh
Speaking of public
telethons.
broadcasting, our pixelation is not very good, so please describe in vivid detail
Hey,
what our
Audrey.
240 by 180 screen is
Yeah.
showing.
You hear Mom saying it's done, and shut my door too, please. Thanks.
Now, by the way, Aaron is surrounded by a group of professionals, including his wife and children. He has walked away from the deaths, but as far as we are told by the team on staff, he's perfectly safe. Would you agree, William?
Everything is still fine.
Everything is fine. You have not burnt down the house.
No, nothing is burnt down. So what I'm doing right now is I soldered a little header
Mhm.
pin right there. Those little pins to the
Mhm.
to this board, because otherwise it's no easy way to connect to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to have this USB serial device. Kind of looks like this. There's a USB port on one end, and there's a bunch of raw wires on the other end.
Wonderful.
And these raw wires have different meanings to them. So red is 5 volts,
Mhm.
black is ground, white is receive, green is transmit, blue is clear to send, and yellow is ready to send. We're not using blue and yellow.
And you
We're
should
just
look
gonna
these
use-
up on your own because, Aaron, are you a professional?
Oh, no. I'm just having to read off of a page because I can't remember any of that stuff. So one thing that's really kind of interesting with this is that it's expecting 3.3 volts. And how many volts does a typical USB connector have?
5 volts, I believe, by the USB
Right.
3.0 specification.
So if we were to go over by 2.5 volts or 1.5 volts on this, what do you think would happen to that poor little microcontroller on that board?
We would fry it. It would overheat. If we had a heat camera, it would turn red.
We'd probably let the magic smoke out of it.
The magic
So-
smoke.
Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of electrical engineering hackery right now. I'm going to aim my camera so you can kind of see. Probably won't be able to see very well. This is a benchtop power supply. I can make from very small amounts of volts up to about 60 volts DC with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little over here is a USB, like, one of those plug all your USB things in and
Mhm.
whatever. And that's all going to be 5 volts. What I have hanging off the end of the power brick that powers this USB is a ground wire. What I'm going to
Ooh.
do is I'm going to reference the ground wire to this device here.
Yes.
And both this device and this device are plugged into the same power strip. So they'll be on the same ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to command this thing to make 3.3 volts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not going to use the little 5-volt cable on this thing.
Wonderful.
And so that way, I will cause this device to signal at 3.3 volts instead of 5 volts.
Saving the magic dust coming out of the microcontroller.
And you have to ask, why would it do that? Because this has what's called an optocoupler in it.
Mhm.
And an optocoupler is a way to optically decouple voltage signals between two separate systems. And typically the optocouple side of this thing is driven at 5 volts. And since we're not going to hook up the 5 volts, it'll go all the way down to 3.3.
So, Aaron,
it's kind of
when you were
thing I
studying at
figured
MIT,
out.
you learned all this, correct?
I think I told you I only stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once.
That's right. So you have learned this through the internet.
I was pouring orange juice one morning after staying the night at Holiday Inn Express, and then it came
And
to
we're
me.
doing this. Obviously, we'll turn off the cheese for a minute.
No, so realistically, I kind of figured this out through trial and error. I've fried enough stuff in my life to know that you can't actually just hook stuff up like this without
Yep.
at least considering the voltage of things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And Aaron and I
trial
are
and error,
literally-
ready.
we're winging this. We've worked together professionally in the past, but
Yeah.
the whole reason we're doing this stream tonight is to get eyeballs on our community because we want to help people find love in code, whatever
We're
that
just
means
playing.
for them.
This is kind of actually the boring part because I got to hook all this stuff up. So
So while you're doing that, William and I will have a very good and intellectual conversation.
perfect.
Hey, William,
Yes.
what's the intellectual conversation that we can have right now? About software.
About software.
So,
Well,
William, can I tell you a story Can I tell you what I'm, what about some more things about Canton Coders that you might find interesting?
Please.
So one of the things that we're doing right now as a community is, we have nearly 700 people in our Slack, and I know our reach by metrics, and I don't look at this too closely, is thousands, if not tens of thousands. In fact, we found that we have some people that join us from an island off of the coast of Madagascar. So we have a worldwide reach.
Marshalls.
Yeah, so you met Sharon, right?
No, I saw the messages. Or the sorry, yeah, I guess messages, whatever you want to call them.
So what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to understand, how do you get in software the most responsible and economical way, right? So there's a couple things out there that we're studying. First of all, there are people like Aaron that don't need any formal training, that will just figure it out on their own and be great at software. What do you think, William? Is that a fair statement, that you can learn software on your own?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Okay.
I think it depends for me anyway. I think or my experience would say, it depends maybe on your learning style.
Yeah.
But there's more than enough resources. And if you're part of this group, Canton Coders, I think it seems to me there's lots of people who want to help, lots of things going on to help you on that journey.
Yep. And one of the questions we're pondering, because we get asked this a lot, and it's not a good question, it's not a bad question, it's just a question, right? Is, should I go to a boot camp? Should I go to a community college? Or should I go to a 4-year university? Right?
Ooh.
And that's one of the questions that we would like to debate within our community, because we don't think there's any wrong way to get into software. We think there's a challenge to getting into software in a way that you will be happy.
Yes.
And one of the things we're starting to see is, like, to pay someone. I mean, this is the internet age right now. Harvard puts all their computer science online for free, right? If you don't value a degree.
Yeah.
Before you go out and pay someone for software, how can we help educate people to make the best decisions for themselves and their family? And that's what we're looking at, William. So if that's something that's interesting to you, because don't you have a degree in industrial engineering?
Yeah.
Like, that's not computer science, is it?
Nope.
Yeah.
Actually, so a little more detail on how I learned things. The very first stuff was pretty simple VBA stuff. So like advanced macros for Excel, things like that.
Too many people get into programming due to Excel, but that's a good thing.
Then I had a job that had a bit of free time and some tasks that I really didn't like to do. And this was like, 2013-ish. And the MOOCs were first starting to really get popular. And so I learned a lot from Coursera, Udacity. That led to other questions, that led to Stack Overflow, that led to other projects at work that I took on.
Yep.
And it took a while, and because I've been in big companies, it took a while to get my way into an actual software job. But the one that I have now, I was actually just appointed. Like, they made a new position. They said, we made this for you. You have a choice if you want to take it, but was made specifically for you.
Wonderful. So you're saying your route to computer programming, let's say computer science is traditional. Is that fair to say, Aaron?
Yeah.
So your route was, you went to industrial engineering.
Yep.
You probably took an undergrad class in computer science. Is that fair?
It was incorporated into like an intro to engineering, some coding stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
And your route to software engineering is, let's call it non-traditional, right? But are you happy?
Yes.
See? And this is how we segue back to Aaron. Because remember, one of the things we do at Canton Coders is we teach software developers how to communicate. So Aaron, remind me, how do we get back on topic?
Oh, we just start talking about it again. It's really easy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on a tool called Taskmotizer I briefly shared the screen of it earlier on a web page, but I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Let's see here.
Will you share your screen then, though? Or
Yeah, I'm
describe
working
it
on it.
vividly, pixel by pixel.
I could. Hang on one second here.
By the way, Aaron, thanks for doing this tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So let's see here.
We're literally doing this
Taskmatizer.
so we can find those developers tonight. That one
You like
person on
the-
Twitter.
I
That
kind of like the graphics on this program. It's pretty great.
wonderful. This is why software developers should not do UIs.
Yes.
Funny enough, I was thinking it looks like something I would have done UI.
You know what's worse than a computer scientist doing a UI? A physicist or electrical engineer.
Oh yeah. So we can see here that we have TTY USB 0, which
What does
is
that mean?
that's just a serial port for those people not familiar with
So
Linux or Unix.
that's the first USB, because 0
Yeah.
means first.
TTY actually means teletype. I don't have a teletype, but it could talk to a teletype theoretically, I think. And USB 0 is the first device.
Yep.
So I've selected the release version of taskmoda.bin. And I don't really care about all this stuff, and I'm going to erase it before flashing. And hopefully this actually sees the device. So
wait,
it's
before
kind of
you
hard
go
to
there,
see it. Yeah.
for the accountants at home thinking I don't want to go through another tax season and I'd like to become a software developer, what does .bin stand for? Because everyone thinks it means trash.
It's a binary file.
And what is binary?
It is a compiled piece of software.
And if I was going to say this,
particular hardware platform.
And what does it look like if you were to open it up?
It'd be a bunch of ones and zeros.
Boom! And that's what computers use. But moving on back to the topic at hand. That segue just derailed you, did it not?
Yeah.
So let me reframe
Can't move this fast.
Let me
I was
reframe this.
I was going to say that a binary file typically holds both data and instructions for a CPU to execute.
Yep. And if you find this interesting, join us as a software developer. If you're bored to death at this point, except for our wonderful wit and humor, go into like welding.
Yeah.
You'll make more.
So it's a little hard to see this, so I'm not going to actually show it. I'm just going to describe it. That circuit board I was showing earlier, I've hooked it up to the power supply. I've set it for 3.3 volts. I've intercepted the power and ground from my little USB thing that's called TTY USB 0 and given that board 3.3 volts. You'll probably be able to hear it on the microphone. If I turn on my power supply, you're going to hear a beeping noise. Ready? Hear that?
I heard the beep.
Okay. That's that little board crying. It's going, Mommy, I don't have any 120 volts power, but somehow I'm powered up. I'm scared. Is what it's doing. It's throwing an error message in its firmware that exists right now. I don't care about its firmware because we're about to wipe it, hopefully. So there is a button on the front of this device that this is the reason that I like Sonoff. It's usually on most embedded devices, like your garage door opener has the button. You push it and hold it, and then you go reset and then do your smartphone dance, and it does a thing. And that's really no different here. But what this company Sonoff does in particular that I like is they also tie that same button to the reset program pin on the microcontroller. So if I have to do this with two hands, hold down the reset button and turn on the power, it powers up, but it's no longer beeping at me. So now what happened is it's now in programming mode. And if I hopefully push the taskmatize button, it is writing the firmware to the device right now.
So you're taking a Sonoff device, you're flashing an open source software to it, so you can have full control at your house, so you can tinker.
Yes. Can you see right here the section where it says chip erased complete successfully in 1.5 seconds?
Yep.
It's compressed the binary. It's loading it over the serial port right now up to the device. So it's no longer running the embedded Chinese firmware from Sonoff that calls home and requires a smartphone app. It is about to, as soon as it restarts here, be able to run off of itself on my own Wi-Fi network. So process successful, power cycle the device. So I'm just going to simply turn off the device. And now remember, when I turned it on without pushing the reset button, it started doing crazy beep error messages at me. Now when I power it up, it doesn't do anything. It's just kind of sits there. So what's really neat about this is we can start to kind of chat with this device. So we can send a configuration to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, is it going to show? Yeah, that's good.
His password is Aaron is super awesome.
Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to program it to have this SSD, which is my,
Mm-hmm.
I have a special Wi-Fi network for embedded devices, and I'm going to give it its thing. And do you see how it says configuration sent 43 bytes and device will restart? And I can tell because out of the corner of my eye, the little blinking light changed its pattern for a second.
So you're telling it to connect to your network by
Right.
that name with that secret.
This little program called Taskmatizer is just a front end for a serial interface. It makes it very easy. I wish I had a cooler one that could show the whole log of it booting up and stuff. I might be able to, but we can get the IP address now. So it just asks for the IP address. It's this. And if I copy that and I open up a web page to it,
Mm-hmm.
there it is. Basic configured. It's now, I can hit the toggle button. And I don't know if you can maybe see it over here.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't really. There's a little blue light that's turning on the front of it. Anyway, you just have to believe me.
We believe you,
But
Aaron.
what I now need to do is I need to go dig around. I'm going to stop the full screen share and I'm going to go back to just sharing the browser because I monitors kind of high resolution there.
By the way, Aaron, we are doing this completely ad hoc, so you're doing amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't planning this. I didn't have a script or anything. I'm just kind of doing it. So let's go to configuration and then configure module. And then I think, let's see, what is this thing? It's a Sonoff something or other. Oh, it's an iFan 03. It's actually an iFan 04, but we're going to call it the iFan 03. The reason is that the 03 was designed for 240 volt markets like Europe and Asia. The iPhone Fan 04 is 120 volts for the United States. The only real difference is the voltage it operates. The whole board and everything else is the same. So we're going to save the configuration. You can see it's now telling me it's going to restart in a few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Main menu here. So now there's a toggle switch,
Uh-huh.
and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, a bunch of different relays here. So now if I go and I just take this apart and then go put it back in its case and wire it as it's supposed to be wired to my fan, I can open the same IP address up and control it via this web page if I wanted to. So the next thing to do is to get this to talk to Home Assistant as a discoverable device. So let's take a look here. We go configuration, configure MQTT. There's a host and some other stuff. Because I don't remember what that was, I'm going to go cheat and I'm going to probably, let's see here. Copy that and put it over here. And then I'm going to go forward to, here we go, to the iFan 03. So all I'm going to do is I don't remember all of the names and stuff that I'd called it. So I'm going to just copy and paste this over. So there's the host and the device is some sort of device number. So let's call it ceiling fan. And then over here we have MQTT relay board 01. We'll use the same user because I'm
So you're
horrible at
naming
security today.
the ceiling fan so your home server can see it?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is this is going to publish, someone who's asking to be joined, I admitted them just now.
Yep, that's Fearless Mark. Mark is.
So I'm going to share this screen for a minute so you can see MQTT Explorer. So we see Taskmota, and this is a discovery path. And then these are discovery topics that announce themselves as devices. Home Assistant is also watching these discovery paths. And if I configure this, I'm
And are you
wrestling with how much to share.
Are you on Wi-Fi or 433?
I'm all on Wi-Fi for everything right now.
Okay.
So, let's see here. I got to remember the Home Assistant.
Let's. Do we need to have an
password.
interesting conversation while you figure this out without you sharing your
Yeah.
screen?
Sure.
So why
I'll
don't you
turn off
quit
my
sharing your
screen.
screen and I'll introduce. Hey, Mark. Mark, you out there? Mark is
Oh,
looking for his unmute.
yeah.
Hey, Mark. One of the reasons we're doing this stream tonight is because there might be one person. That's all we're trying to reach. That wants to get into software development, and we're talking about the thousands of ways to get into software development. How about you, Mark? How did you get into software development? We blinded you with this conversation tonight, but hey, you're a software developer right now, correct?
Yeah, I was just playing No Man's Sky anyway, which I still am technically.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I saw programming classes. My dad was like, "Hey, you might be good at this." I was like, "Oh, you can't take them to your junior," which didn't make sense because actually that wasn't true at all. But then I was like, "Oh, wait, I could be taking these classes." So I took these classes. I had probably the best teacher I've ever seen on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, he was like a chairman of a bank or something, or on the board of a bank. And he's like, I just want to teach for the hell of it, because why not? And he, I don't know how to describe. He was the type of teacher. First of all, he had the driest, best humor you could imagine.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah. and yeah, right. When kids would come up and be like, "How do I do this?" And he's like, well, what does a loop do? And he'd be like, well, goes over each item. So if you had an item that you needed to add something to, what might you? And he'd drop breadcrumbs, right? And he'd do it in a funny way, right? Not sarcastic, not insulting, but he'd do it in a way the kids would be like, oh, and you'd have to go figure it out. And he'd be like, let's do linked lists. Okay, now you're gonna, or let's do it like stacks and queues. It's like, now you're gonna draw a map. Anyway, so I had that teacher, and it impassioned me. And I ended up in that class, like, I do my work, I get done early, and then I go help the other kids debug their application. And ever since then, it's been history.
Did you go on to any formal studies after high school?
Well, yeah, I went to computer science, which was largely useless. There were a couple good teachers though, with a couple of good, like the dean was one of my teachers, and he was trying to make it a more matching to reality.
Yeah.
Major.
So tonight we learned from Aaron, who's hacking his own ceiling fan right now, who is self-taught. We learned
Nice.
from William, who has a degree in industrial engineering. He's pretty good at colors, I think, or picking out colors and drapes. And I don't know what industrial engineering does, but quotes Deming maybe. And then you have a computer science degree. And
industrial in engineering, not design.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Sorry,
William. No, I mean, because both could be things.
We all know that William's background is perfectly perfectly symmetrical and has all functional things if you turn his camera on. Right, William? Yeah. But the key thing we're doing tonight, Mark, is we're trying to educate people, right? There's thousands of ways into software development. And before you give $1 to someone, right, we're saying try to go hack a fan controller at your house. If you don't like it, pick another career.
Yeah.
If you like it, before you throw money at something, join our community. Go talk to people, right?
Oh, man. People can't be...
point this out as a device that's kind of fun from a hardware perspective. This is called a development board. It's the same chip. It costs $9 on Amazon to order and have it delivered to my house. It literally has a USB plug on the end of it. You just plug it into USB and right onto your computer, and it lights right up. That little device has Wi-Fi on it. You can control a whole bunch of pins on it, sensors. You can drive displays, lights, music. You can record stuff. You can play stuff back. People have written tons of software for this thing that's easy to understand in platforms that are simple to use. You could make robots with it. You could make chicken coop controllers. You could do whatever you want. You could do computer machine vision with it. The thing is that I hold in my hand a device that costs $9. And there's a whole bunch of free documentation and entire communities of people, including this one, to be able to help you get through it. You don't have to pay more than $9 for that, not, that other amount. And the thing is that, it's going to help you accelerate potentially for that other thing, but you're not going to get that innate fail early and fail often sort of thing that you need to get in comp sci. And I'm not saying you need to go buy a piece of hardware. You could just do this with just software itself. But what it does is it gives you a tangible connection to the actual machine. And any career in commanding computers to do things for fun and profit starts with an innate understanding of what's happening inside of a chunk of rock that's glued to a piece of circuit board, basically. And I think it's really important to understand that there's an entire line of thinking that you have to have that you enjoy doing. And if you're forcing yourself to do it, it's not going to be very fun.
And I'm going to say this from an industry standpoint as we seek to learn, right, Mark? And you'll back me up, and I think William and Aaron will back me up. There's so many ways into software development. And before you drop a dollar on it, right, we see things like boot camp, community college, right, 4-year degrees that take segments of your life and large portions of your money. Before you do this, try something like this. If you hate it, pick another career.
Yeah,
if you love it, come talk to us and talk to people like William, who I just accidentally cut off.
Oh no, you're good. I was just gonna say, I think too, with the boot camp route and anything you have to pay, especially a lot of money for. There's been a lot of whatever online of like get into tech, right? And so I think that's given way to also a lot of people see opportunity to make money and maybe not provide you a good background or that, right? They're just trying to get your money. So definitely try it and research those if you decide to go that path,
Yep. And William, can I tell you my story? Because nobody's asked mine. So you should say yes to this.
What's your story?
I went to a community college, right? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 18. And I studied computer science at Lansing Community College. And I work at one of the top 3 tech companies in the world. I went to community college. My education was free, right? You can do whatever you want. But before you throw your family's money, right? Boot camps, I just noticed boot camps cost $15,000. And some of them charge like 16% interest, right?
Holy crap, yeah.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
And community colleges are traditionally free, and then like if you go to a private university, you're looking at $200,000 for a computer science degree, right? Before you doing any of this, we're not saying anything's good or bad. We're saying do your homework, because Aaron, do you have a successful career in software?
It's successful enough. I enjoy what I do. I like talking to people and solving problems, and I'm always looking for something interesting to talk about with those clients and my peers.
Yeah.
So
and is it fair to say we will all make well over 6 figures?
Yes.
Not to toot our own home. There are so many ways into software. Before you spend your family's life savings on it, join a community like ours. Have a serious conversation. We want you to be successful, but more importantly, we want you to be happy.
I think this is a great segue to some of the community things that can happen, and I want to share my screen and show.
Yes, and that's how we get back on topic. You see, Aaron has people skills.
So this is, once again, I'm not trying to sell Tasmota here because it's open source and free and you don't have to pay anything for it. But I am pointing out that this is, look at the URL, github.io. This is a full set of descriptions on how to do stuff. It looks like a product and it looks complicated and whatever, but there's literally a link that says getting started. And most projects out on the internet that are like this have this kind of stuff. You need to have an ESP device. Here's some stuff you have to be careful of. 3.3 volts. I'm just reading the directions. I really am. They're talking about the little headers. They're talking about the things. And if you don't really know what this all means, follow through it literally. Try to make this happen. Heed the warnings. Don't connect to mains power, that kind of stuff. Look, there's little wiring diagrams. It shows how it's supposed to go together. Gives all the things and how to do it. Here's the web UI. Here's the serial terminal. And at the end of this, you can basically talk to, let me see here, find the part where it asks for help. Home, I think. Maybe it's about. So I don't know where it's at in here. That might be a little harder to find. But they have a Discord channel, they got a GitHub, they got all the other stuff. And I think the thing that I would want to show you is, let me see here, back to home. Here it is. So I'm only talking about the nerd aspects of the hardware itself. Like, here's a thing, go download it, magic happens, and now you have a home embedded device that you can control. But I encourage you to look beyond that and realize that what this is a source code project on GitHub that has a bunch of instructions on how to do it and a bunch of features and releases.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of software development and all those boot camps and all that other stuff is that you'll see pull requests and that you're going to see the code itself. And here is the boards, and here is all of the stuff and all of the JSON files and all the commits and all the people working and all the defects and bugs and branches and everything, a real live project that you can just sit here and soak it in until you kind of go, I think I might see what's going on. Let me solve a few problems with something I found with mine. And you can start asking questions to people and interacting with real people out in the world. And you're not making any money yet, but you know what you're doing is you're practicing, and it's just like what school would be like.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different communities that let you do this. So, I can't stress enough how important it is to see there's, 652 people watching this project. There's 4,000 forks of the software back to people's own little things if you want to have. And this is only one project that exists that allows people to practice their chops at software development. This is what I do to try to get better.
And Aaron, if you don't like it, this bores you, what should you do?
Go do something else. Well, how much have I committed in money and financially wise? Not a lot.
Yep.
And anybody who says, well, if you don't put in a lot, then you don't get a lot out, is a total lie, because it's actually about your time that you're putting into this. And I put a lot of time into this.
And the one thing we want to do with our community is make sure you're happy that 14 weeks to 4 years from now, you're not regretting your decisions, that you're not an industrial engineer that accidentally turned into computer scientist, right, William?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? We want to make sure that you're happy, because honestly, life's too short not to be happy with your day job.
All right.
So
let's do the
Aaron,
big
let's
reveal
get back
here.
on topic.
Yeah. So here we are on Home Assistant, right?
You should update your Home Assistant. I did that last night, by the way.
Oh man, look at all the stuff I got in here. It's crazy.
Look at this weird flex.
What a weird flex, huh? So anyway, we're going to go over to devices and services. And because I've configured things in Home Assistant.
This man owns 2 printers, by the way. That's how rich he is.
Yeah. Inkjet and a laser printer. You'll see that there's 4 devices in here, and one of them is called ceiling fan now.
Is that the ceiling fan you just made, Aaron?
That's literally the ceiling fan I just flashed.
I'm the John Madden of software streaming.
Check it out. I can turn on the fan and turn it off. I can edit this thing. I can specify a location. So I don't know if I have a bedroom yet. So I'm going to say bedroom. We'll say southeast bedroom.
That's in the southeast corner of his home, if you're not educated in the audience.
And then we're going to update that. And so now let's add to the default dashboard. And maybe we can pick a different card.
And this is just how you see it. A card is what you see things in Home Assistant. But Aaron, can I ask you a favor?
Sure.
Can you show us how to do an if-then statement? Because that's what software is all about, correct?
Sure.
Can you show us how to do something like that? Because if you like doing this, you might like software. If you hate doing this, well,
let's see. What's
you might go be a doctor or something.
What's the easiest thing to do this in?
I think if temperature. Do you have a temperature sensor in that room?
Actually, that's going to be, the problem is it's too easy to do it in here.
Do it with the temperature and occupancy.
Oh, well here, yeah, let's do that. We'll go to settings. We're going to go to
it's automations.
Yeah, automations. And we're going to create a new automation. We're going to make we're not going to use a blueprint. We're going to start with an empty automation. We're going to add a trigger. And let's do a device. And we're going to say
The printer.
Temperature.
The printer turns on, then turn on the
Now
fan.
here, let's do if the temperature in the chicken coop
Mm-hmm.
goes above 75 degrees
Mm-hmm.
for more than 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
add a trigger. And the condition is after sunset and before, well, no, let's do before sunset and after sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to add an action and we're going to call a service and we're going to type in fan. And let's see here. Actually, maybe it's yeah, well, fan toggle or ceiling. Maybe that one doesn't
I don't
show
think
up.
it's a service. I think it's a device.
I think it's a device. Let's see here. Delete that.
As we know right now,
Add an
Mark is
action.
Googling Home Assistant.
Yep. Device. Ceiling fan. Turn the ceiling fan on. There we go.
And
So
if
that was kind of an if-then statement.
and if that's joyful to you, you might like
Save it.
computer programming as a career. If you hate this, be a doctor or lawyer.
Let me
Or go
I'll
into
show you-
welding and make more money by the time you're 28.
There's other ways to do this too. If you don't like programming it that way, then do it visually instead.
There we go. Now we're talking my style.
Node
So here's some nodes. We can take a sensor called the refrigerator door and we can look for the word off and replace it with the number 0. And we can look for the word on and replace it with a 1. Then we just simply wire a wire like that. And this relay is expecting a 0 or a 1 on a path in MQTT like we were talking about earlier. And when you write a 0 to it, it turns it off. And when you write a 1 to it, it turns it on. And that I just programmed that.
And I can't tell you if that makes you excited, you might like a career in software. If that bores
I'm
you to
excited
death,
about it.
if that bores you to
So,
death,
Then
pick
don't do
something
it.
else. Because
Yeah.
that's what our life is.
Hmm.
I think this stuff's really cool.
Actually, our life
here,
is,
check this
is
one out.
going to stand-ups.
Every 30 seconds, get the sun position for where I'm physically at, like the altitude of the
Mhm.
sun. And then we have a little function that calculates the time of day.
Mm-hmm.
We have some variables in here. We decide whether it's night, morning, day, or evening. And then we have what this is called is a curve switch, night, morning, day, or evening. So this is all this is doing is determining which section of the day out of a 24-hour day it is, and it's calling it something literally that text.
Mm-hmm.
Then here's the cool part. Check this out. I can draw curves. I can say at the beginning of this output, go this much, and at the end of this output, do that much. And I can define these as numerical numbers. I just draw the lines, and I have a whole bunch of these. The night curve, the morning curve. Let's look at the daylight curve. See how it's just a day thing?
Mm-hmm.
These curves blend together from 0 to a 100 over on this one. And I didn't do anything with it because I just kind of left it there. This one is between 2000 and 5500.
Mm-hmm.
What numbers do you think, Joel, would represent a light color with the numbers between 2000 and 5500?
The kelvins of the sun.
That's right.
And that wasn't preset or anything. I also run Home Assistant at home, and I'm super nerdy because I
So
enjoy
here's the-
this stuff. My wife
So here's
doesn't.
the Kelvin color temperature scale. At 2000, it's very orange, and at 7000, it's just bright, bright, bright. And so what this does is it moves this message payload from payload to temperature.
Mhm.
It kind of translates that number. And then it comes over to a thing called color converter. And you know what color converter does is it just generates a payload for the color. And then what it does, API error. There's problem. Because I manually turned the light off. That's why. And what it does is it writes a color temperature in Kelvin to my RGB light that's in the other room. And so in the morning, the light comes on from completely dark because it's in the basement and there's not a lot of windows down here. and
Mhm.
simulates the sunlight color as it goes throughout the day.
And in the literally two things we're hitting on is first, I run this for a blow up snowman at my house, so it's real, right? So if my daughter's awake, the snowman is standing. If my daughter goes to nap or sleep, I don't pay the bill.
None of this
And there's
costs
an
any
I
money.
occupancy
like it.
sensor in the nursery.
100%. 100%.
Right? But if
That's
you
good.
find this interesting, software is for maybe for you.
Yeah.
If you find this incredibly boring, please
Don't do it.
pick another career. Do not believe the hype of software development. It's
Yeah.
not that great, is it, Mark?
I know. It's all news.
All this stuff is just software. There's nothing really other than this, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, if we were to kind of look at let's see here. Let's see. What was that module that I was using there? Color converter. That's right. Color.
So literally
So-
tonight is you took an off-the-shelf firmware device, correct?
Yep.
You flashed it with your own software, you hooked it into your smart home, and you programmed it to turn on and off based upon some preset conditions.
Here's the
And-
code that makes that color conversion stuff happen, just to kind of interrupt just a little bit.
Oh yeah, go ahead and
Know what
look.
it is? It's just a bit of JavaScript.
So pause on this, right? You can
Yeah.
kind of see where we're going tonight, right, Aaron?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Scrolled it right there. If that makes you happy looking at this all day long, what should you do, Aaron?
I would pursue it.
If it doesn't make you happy,
Then don't.
and Aaron, I'm going to ask you a really loaded question here, because Mark went to a computer science school. Sorry,
I'm
he
good
paid
at
a lot of
answering
money
loaded
for his
questions.
degree. William studied industrial engineering, so he paid a lot of money to an adjacent career, right?
Yeah.
Aaron, you haven't really paid much for your education.
No.
How much would you pay to learn this? Like, given the fact that you got some kids and a wife at home, how much would you pay?
I can't afford to pay for it right now.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if I was in a situation where I wanted to change careers because I was desperate for cash,
Mm-hmm.
I would have. There's a whole thing about how I've talked about downsizing and running within your means and all sorts of stuff, and it can get really preachy and horrible, so don't even go there right
Mhm.
now. But what it really is that if you're in the position of considering taking classes at a boot camp or a college or whatever for computer programming, you also have the gift of some amount of free time to be able to do it on your own to begin with. And I would suggest doing it on your own, just like we've been talking about over and over and over again tonight, before you go and pay somebody to tell you the same stuff that you should be able to discover on your own. One of the core values of a software developer that will be successful is the ability to discover how things work and make things happen. And if you don't have that capability yet, you need to grow that before you touch a single line of code. And you can do that by understanding how the world works around you and how things function.
And the reason we're doing this is because we're coming to a point where there's so many ways to get into software. But I'm going to pick on Mark here. If it seems too good to be true, what do you think, Mark? If they
Yeah,
say,
probably
"Hey, you
is.
look," and I've literally seen this on some marketing websites, you can make $95,000 a year after 14 weeks of training.
Yeah. No.
And then
you
I've seen,
get fired in 3 months after 14 months of training.
yeah, and I've also seen people you can go to 4 years, right? Spend 4 years of your life and only $25,000 total to get a computer science degree in Florida, right? Is that going to make you happy?
No, probably not.
What we're trying to do is educate that Aaron did this on his own. I went to community college. Mark went to computer science, and William went to industrial engineering. He's the weirdest among us all. Weirdest among all of us. Is that fair to say, Aaron?
It's not weird. He's just special.
His drapes probably match his bedspread. Let's just put it that way, right? So many ways in the software engineering. Please join a community like ours before you throw a bunch of money and time at things that don't get a return on investment. And let's help you be happy.
one fan controller down, one to program. The next one, I won't have Joel yapping in my ear the whole time, so it'll go a lot faster.
But the thing is tonight, Aaron, Mark, everyone on the stream tonight, William, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I want to close this stream out. Cane Coders is a nonprofit. We don't make any money. We have no money. We run on story points and volunteers. And we believe you should be happy in software development. And we want to help
Quick
that.
show of hands, how many story points did we burn down tonight on this thing?
Oh,
Or at least 5, man.
I think Face Cafe
Yeah.
for our Hex fans out there. But yeah. The thing is, when I re-upload this, it's gonna be clickbait. Ready? Before you invest any time in boot camp, community college, or computer science,
Try
watch
something like
this
this.
cheesy 1.5 hour video.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you found this fun, and this is our theme, right, Aaron? What should you do if you found this fun and interesting and think you could do it for 30 years?
Probably pursue it.
And
At
if
least
you
go
think,
try some. At least go try some projects in it.
and if you're not
in
watching
space.
by now, it probably stinks. And if you are, don't go into it. Life's too short to have a job you don't like.
I think there's a good test that you could do to kind of go from here. If what you saw, if you actually stuck through an hour and a half of it, you probably are at least somewhat interested in a minimum of at least home automation. You may be interested in more than that. So if you ask yourself, I just want to control my ceiling fan on and off via magic, you might be interested. If you're like, wow, I really want to know how that code actually does that on that little board, I definitely would suggest digging in a little more into software development if you're not already there.
Yeah. So with that, Aaron, thanks tonight for showing us what's going on. I have my favorite documentary on. If you're looking at computer science as a career or computer programming, please go check out Office Space. Mark, will you find that at most collegiate libraries? And Blockbuster and Netflix and Hulu?
Pretty much anywhere.
And after watching this video for 90 minutes and that for 2, and you like it, right? Mark, would you encourage people to pursue software development?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't like it, William, what should you do?
Make a better choice that makes you happy.
That's right. Thanks for this surprise stream tonight. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording and the streaming, and have a great night.
You too.
All right. Take care, guys.